Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Blue Line the Podcast, a podcast created for and aimed at all members of law enforcement. I'm Brittani Schroeder, editor of Blue Line magazine. Today, I'm joined by Mike Callaghan, who just recently retired as the Chief of Police from Belleville Police Service in Ontario. For those of you who may not know, 2024 marks Blue Line's 35th anniversary, and Mike has had over 38 years of policing experience. So today, not only are we going to be looking back at Mike's incredible career, but we're also going to be talking about what has changed the most in the world of law enforcement since 1989. So, Mike, I just want to start off and say thank you so much for joining me on today's episode.
Well, thanks very much, Brittany. It's actually my honor to be here with you today.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. So, I briefly touched on this in my intro, but I want to say it again. You have almost 40 years of policing experience, and I think that's just an incredible accomplishment. So, for our listeners who may not have had the pleasure of meeting you, can you tell everyone about your career and kind of what made you want to go into policing in the first place? And then what was your journey like from then until now?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Brittany. So I was 21 years old. I was going to Carleton University. I had gone to college for 2 years at Loyalist College in Belleville and decided I wanted to continue my education. And I was only at Carleton University for a very short period of time in 1985 when I was hired out of university and started off my career. I first started off on patrol, then I went to a Marine unit, and then I went to the motorcycles, and then I went to accident reconstruction, then I went to forensics, and then I went to fleet. And after fleet, I did some major event planning, and then I did criminal investigations as a case manager for all the investigative units. And then I went back and did some more major event planning, and then off to assist with G8s, G7s, G20s across the province. And then I had the opportunity to do a couple of secondments across into the federal government. One was with Indigenous Affairs at that time, and the second one was with the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade at the time it was called. And then I came back. I was promoted to an inspector, and then off to the Guns and Gangs Youth Prevention Weapons Enforcement Unit, and a couple of other smaller units. And then I had the opportunity to come to Belleville as the deputy chief and then subsequently the chief. So I've had a wonderful career. I've had so many career opportunities and so many different careers within policing itself. It's been an unbelievable journey. And coming to Belleville, you'll see in the background here, one of the things and opportunities that I had was to oversee the design, the implementation, and the structuring, or sorry, the building of the structure. And it's a very, very functional building and one we're very proud of.
It sounds like you've definitely seen it all. Maybe not all, but you've seen a lot of sides of policing. So this is a great opportunity to pick your brain to see really what's changed over the last few years. But before that, I feel like when a police chief retires, or any member of law enforcement for that matter, I feel like there's always a part of you that will be wanting to keep serving your community, but in different ways. What do you think you're going to miss most about being an active part of a police service?
I think the people and building those relationships, Brittany, like I will, as you just said, I'll continue to maintain my work in the community, and I'm still sitting on different boards, and I will continue to do that. But an opportunity to serve the community in just a different capacity, and I think it's important that when you're given opportunities in your career, that it's incredibly important to give those lessons learned back, because a mentor of mine many, many years ago said, how unfortunate would it be if we didn't seize the opportunity to provide those developmental learning opportunities to other people so that they don't have the likelihood of failing themselves? And it's so very true. And I think it's critically important for the betterment of the entire community.
Of course.
That being said, you had asked me a question earlier about what got me into policing.
Mhm.
And I'm sorry I didn't answer that, but I come from a long line of family in policing. I had two older brothers that were with the Ottawa Police prior to me starting. My wife that I met after joining the Ottawa Police was a municipal prosecutor. Her sister was a deputy chief in Ottawa, and all kinds of cousins in the law enforcement field as well. And I now have two sons who are Ottawa police officers. So they often refer to us as the real life blue bloods. And I can tell you that some of our conversations around the dinner table were incredibly interesting.
I can only imagine. Now, as I mentioned earlier as well, we're celebrating our 35th anniversary. And because you've been in policing for the entire length of our magazine's lifetime, I have to ask, what do you think has changed the most since you first started as a constable?
I would suggest that's a tiered response. And what I mean by that is that when I joined in 1985, October of 1985, I could go out and I could process two or three and sometimes even four impaired driving charges a night. And during the late 80s, impaired driving was prolific. It was really, really bad. And it was very easy to go out and pick somebody off for driving while intoxicated.
Mm-hmm.
And now I look at what the officers are doing and the amount of paperwork and the administrative challenges behind it. And sometimes one impaired driving charge now can be 7 or 8 hours worth of paperwork. So I would suggest to you that the administrative side of policing has changed exponentially. Wow. And those challenges are reflected in the paperwork. And I remember a case that was in Ottawa of an impaired driver, and the person was actually in reverse. And it was called impaired driving at the time. And the judge at the time said the person wasn't driving, they were in reverse. So that's not driving because the gear selector was not in D.
Wow.
So as a result of those changes, and I believe that was 1989, it was changed in the criminal code to be impaired operation of a motor vehicle. So that legislatively was changed as a result of that decision. Wow. So those are some of the small pieces that kind of make you scratch your head and you really kind of go, wow. But one of the other things that I think has really changed significantly and prolifically is police oversight. And there is so much oversight. And as we see now in Ontario with the Community Safety Policing Act changing and the amount of legislative requirements, not only for equipment, but for training, for board member training, and the accountability components, the reporting structures. There's been some very, very significant changes in relation to that legislation. Mm-hmm. And I think moving forward, it's going to be more challenging for mid-size and small police services to survive. Back in, I believe it was 1999 and into 2000, there was a theory or an ideology about making 5 super forces across Ontario. Right. And because of the economies of scale and the adequacy standards. And it didn't materialize, but I think it's something that needs to be revisited moving forward, because the smaller organizations, and even Belleville being a mid-size and having 100 officers, the smaller organizations are going to be very, very stressed and put in a very difficult situation to be able to provide the same level of policing that the Big 10 or the Big 12 across Ontario are. So I think that is something that's going to have to be revisited. I also think that something that is paramount moving forward is a college of policing, and Justice Tulloch in both of his reports has indicated that is the way that we should go, and I really think it is. I think it's critically important moving forward. We know that it works with the College of Physicians, the College of Teachers, the College of Nurses, the College of Dentists. It works, and I think that moving forward, we really need to look at that type of oversight into policing.
Definitely. And you actually took my next question right from me. It's I wanted to look at the future and where you think we might be headed, or where law enforcement might be headed. Is there anything you'd want to add to those two?
I just think that with the amount of specialization that is required and the amount of training that officers are required, I think that there is an opportunity within that framework to look at duties or responsibilities that don't require a full officer to do them. And I know that it's been touched on in the new CSPA with respect to special constables being allowed to do certain historically sworn constable functions. But I think moving forward, there's a great opportunity to open up that purview and expand it more, because there's a lot of opportunities out there that or functions of policing that could be civilianized, if you will, and not require all those use of force options and training. And I think that it's going to be more effective and efficient in the delivery of service, and at the end of the day, be more cost effective as well.
Of course. Now, thinking over the last 35 years,
You're making me feel old here, Brittany. I'm just
No, not old, experienced. Come on.
Yes, that's it.
Experienced.
Yes.
But over the last, couple years, what would you say has been the biggest technological advancement that has helped police out? Because obviously the world of the 1980s and policing looks very different in terms of technology and what police use on a daily basis. What do you think has been the biggest advancement for police?
There's two there, Brittany. And the first one would be the ALPR, or the Automated License Plate Recognition System. I think that that's made our roadways a lot more safe, and being able to enter in information as well in relation to a suspect that you're looking for whether it be a sexual assault or an attempt murder or a robbery or a significant offense is very, very important. But I would also suggest to you that the body-worn cameras are fundamentally the biggest game changer for the men and women out there doing the job 24/7, 365. Not only to be, it's a multifaceted approach, because not only are they able to capture what was actually spoken, exactly what happened. There's nothing like that video real-time evidence for the purposes of even allegation of a wrongdoing by an officer, and they're able to dispute that very quickly. And I can tell you, in a recent situation where we had made a phone call to SIU where a suspect had banged their head off the partition in the back of the police cruiser and cut themselves. And because it was on video, we sent the video within 20 minutes to the SIU. They had a look at it and said, "We're not invoking. Thanks very much. Bye." So historically, that would be a he said, she said type of deal, which would be a very long, prolonged investigation. So that's just not the case anymore. The other dividend on that is twofold. One is that there are de-escalation techniques that an officer may use. The sergeant or the NCO may have the opportunity to view that and say, "Hey, you know what? At 3 or 4 o'clock, when things start to slow down a little bit, I'm going to bring everybody in. I'm going to display this and show everybody what was used so that everybody can learn from it," which is phenomenal. Another great example of that is with being able to have, and I'm forgetting the term right now, but it's it's essentially a direct link to the officer being able to hit the camera and send the images back to the computer at the station. And we recently had a female who was in acute mental distress on a bridge ready to jump. We had one of our impact workers there. They identified the female and said, "This is so-and-so, here's her triggers." And within 5 minutes, the officer had this individual talked down off the bridge and in getting medical care.
Wow. So
there's an example of saving someone's life with a body cam. And I think that those are two of the most significant fundamental technological changes. Another one that we've been working on in Belleville and won the OACP award for was innovation and technology for the Mobile Connected Officer program. And just having, utilizing and leveraging the technology that's in a phone in the cars to be essentially the laptop of the future. And it's very cost efficient, it's very effective. And the nice thing is when the officer takes the phone out of the cradle, there's only a computer screen and a keyboard. So the costs are significantly lower, as well as the technology is not in the vehicle. There's no modems. So it's a cost saver as well.
Definitely. definitely.
when we started this program, we started to get phone calls from Los Angeles Police Department, Chicago, New York, asking us, they had heard what we were doing and said, how are you guys doing this? So we're very fortunate. We have a very progressive director of information and technology, Joe Meiderwick, and just done an unbelievable job in bringing that technology to every officer in the front line.
Of course. Now, again, on the flip side, looking ahead, in a perfect world, if you could have any piece of technology or any product, that you could create or is out there, it might just be too costly right now. In a perfect world, what would really help police officers going into the future?
Honestly, Brittany, I would suggest to you that continuing on this path with the mobile connected officer and their phones, something that we're doing right now is working with e-notes, and we've got a pilot program going in Belleville, and it seems to be extremely well received by the officers. The Crown attorneys are on board. We're also looking at a new records management system, and the intuitive nature of the records management system will really, really make a huge impact in the officer's ability to expedite the time that they're spent doing their paperwork. So everything from being a text to creating a report is in the not too far distant future.
Right.
And I think that that'll make a big difference, because right now, the amount of administrative responsibilities that the officers have in filling out all those reports, and the everything from their reports, supplementary reports, witness statements, will states, on and on and on, is a huge amount of work. So what's really nice about the new records management system is that on the right-hand side of the screen, as the officers are filling out the reports, it's also entering information into other supplemental reports that are required. So it's kind of a one-stop shopping, which is fantastic, because then they won't have multiple applications that they have to go into.
Of course. Yeah, that sounds like it'll help condense the amount of, like you said, the admin work that they have to do.
Oh, it is. It's really important, because you know what? At the end of the day, we do not want our members sitting in the station doing 7, 8 hours of paperwork. We want them out on the road there making the city safe.
Of course. Now, moving into retirement, I gotta ask you, what are you looking forward to most?
Well, the biggest thing is sleeping through the nights, and that's been a challenge. And if you talk to any chief across Canada, they're going to tell you that their sleep patterns are broken, because at the end of the day, we're concerned about our members. We're concerned about challenges in the community. We're concerned about the victims of certain crimes. I can tell you there was countless nights when we would have somebody out in the community that we knew had the propensity to commit certain crimes, horrific crimes again, and that's what keeps you up at night. And knowing as well that some of your members are suffering from PTSD, and the concern about them potentially a self-harm situation, that's what keeps you awake at night, as well as knowing that there are individuals in every community that we refer to as keyboard commandos, and will attack the officers on any social format that they can get, social media format, I should say, and attack their families as well. And I often remember getting 2 or 3 emails or phone calls from individuals, and they would just shred you or shred your family. And most of the individuals you had never met before. And so that wears on our officers as well. Now, being retired, I won't have to worry about those emails anymore or phone calls. But I my wife and I have 4 trips planned, domestically and internationally, that we're really looking forward to doing. And I'm an avid salmon angler, so I'll within the next week be out on Lake Ontario starting to chase the salmon from west to east, and that'll occupy my summer. And then pretty well by the end of July, I'll be starting to travel. Our first trip will be out to Newfoundland.
Oh, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
Well, Mike, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on today's episode and for telling me about your career, telling all of our listeners about your career and really what you've seen change and what you think could still change in the future. You and I have worked together on numerous occasions over the last few years, and you've always been so willing to answer any questions that I have. So I know I can speak for myself and I can speak for a lot of other people when I say you're going to be missed as chief of police. And I just wish you all the best in your retirement. So thank you again.
Well, thank you very much, Brittany. I've been very blessed to have had the opportunity to do this job. And if I had to change anything, I would do exactly the same thing over again. It's been an unbelievable pleasure. And I've learned so much and I've grown so much personally and professionally that I have nothing but great things to say. And thank you for getting the message out to our policing community as well.
Well, thanks, Mike. For everyone who tuned in, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Blue Line the podcast. You can always check us out on SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever else you get your podcasts. And you can also stay up to date on all of your Canadian policing news at blueline.ca. Until next time, stay safe and be well.